So, as we've discussed before in several Toolbox topic episodes, preventative maintenance is tantamount to having a well-running mountain bike, or road bike for that matter, wouldn't you say, Wyatt?
Yeah, for sure.
So, what we're going to show you today is absolutely shocking. Let's get on topic. Hey everybody, it's Thomas once again with Get Out Arizona, and once again I'm at the Trek Bicycle Store in West Phoenix, but today I'm with my good friend Wyatt Spalding.
Yo.
Wyatt, how the hell are you today?
Doing good. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing great. So, you know, again, dude, I'm tired. I was out late last night in downtown Phoenix, so the intro alluding to shocking, we're actually going to be talking about rebuilding your rear suspension today. Wyatt, let's tell the people some of the things that they're going to need to know before we actually get started and some tools they should have if they're going to do this at home.
Definitely, yeah. So before we get started, obviously you're going to need your bike, a couple set of Allen keys to get the shock off. You're going to need some picks down the line once we get into the shock, some clean towels for sure, lint-free, some isopropyl alcohol, and then pretty much that's it. Everything else you should have lying around mostly.
Awesome, awesome. Now, we're not going to actually remove this shock from this bike. Wyatt, you've brought your shock in from your personal bike we're going to rebuild, and that's already on the workbench. But we're going to go over here really quick on what you're going to have to do to safely, keyword safely, remove this shock from the rear portion of the bike. Brandon, now Brandon's in the background. He's not in this episode. Have you ever had a shock like shoot out and hit somebody in the face doing one of these?
No.
Hey, no man, remember, he's just a pretty face, so remember that. So, all right. So, as far as like, I mean, there's a couple pinch points here, and you want to make sure you don't get your hand. You don't want to get your hand caught up in there, and have something tragic happen. Is there anything really? I mean, the shock isn't going to come shooting out like the shock on a vehicle or a spring or something like that.
Yeah, no, you're not gonna. There's not a whole lot of like safety hazards at this stage of the process, at least. Mainly you're looking out to take good care of your linkage though.
Okay.
So you would want to remove your rear wheel before doing this.
Okay.
That just takes weight off the rear suspension of the bike.
Okay.
If you were to remove the shock now with the rear wheel in, linkage is going to kind of slam into the frame this way.
Right.
Which is, okay, but you're going to later, start to scratch paint away and stuff down the line. So it's best to avoid that. Otherwise though, every bike's a little different with how the shock is mounted. But most of the times it's going to be 4 bolts, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. There is going to be some suspension washers sometimes depending on the bike as well. So that's just stuff to be cautious about and don't lose because that stuff's hard to find and replace sometimes.
Especially now with the shortage on everything. So
otherwise though, most of the times it's as simple as, like I said, removing those 4 bolts. Sometimes it's even just 2, like a through bolt with a shank.
Okay.
So sometimes it's even easier than that. But
awesome, awesome. All right, guys. So at this point, like I said, Wyatt already has a shock out on the workbench that we're going to get started on. So we're going to head on over to the workbench and we're going to get started with this process.
Awesome.
All right, let's head on over. All right, guys, so now we're over at the workbench, and you guys have seen the workbench area here before at Trek Bicycles, and we're going to go ahead and get started on this. Framing is I'm a little closer than what I normally am, but that's all right. And we got the overhead camera, which you can see, and if anybody posts down in the comments of, Thomas, we can see the overhead camera. Seriously, man, I'll pull a Jay and Silent Bob, take some of my Mad Movie money, and come kick your ass. And just, don't be that person. Don't be that troll. So, yeah. Just keep playing World of Warcraft. No, I'm joking, guys. Obviously, I'm joking. So, all right, Wyatt, let's go ahead and get started then. Let's start the process and everything, and just kind of walk us step by step on what we're going to have to do.
Okay, yeah. So first step for sure, be remove all your air from the shock. You don't want to start pulling things apart when it's at 200, 250 psi or so.
Right.
This is also a good time to see if it's been leaking potentially, and diagnose some issues if you've been having some issues. So here, I'm all good. I haven't been leaking anything. I run this at about 160 psi all the time. So it's right at 160. That's good. I will remove all the air though. It's best to use a shock pump with this. If you use a screwdriver, just pressing down the Schrader valve, it all comes out very fast.
Okay.
And you can trap negative pressure doing so.
Okay.
So using a shock pump is pretty much the ideal way to remove the air as well. Just lets you slow it down, coming out a little bit.
It's kind of letting a fart out when you're not sure what's behind it. Psst,
yeah.
Squeakers. Brandon, you know all about that, don't you?
A little bit.
A little bit. Remember that meme, guys? We know who farted first.
Otherwise, though, so once you have the air out, at least you know it's kind of safe to start disassembling at this point.
Okay.
This is a Trek-specific shock through shaft, so it's going to have one of these specific clevises, is what they call at the bottom. Other shocks, you might have to use a certain kind of press to push the little bushings off and stuff, but that you can use sockets. There's a bunch of different things you can use to do that. This one, though, I'm going to use a 15mm hex bit in the vise over here.
Okay.
And then that's going to go insert in there, and then I'm just pretty much going to twist the clevis off.
All right, so I'll kind of switch places with you so you can do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Now he's saying clevis, guys. Don't get that confused with something else. I see Brandon over there smiling already, you know, because that's just the way he is.
Let's see here.
Speaking of Brandon, I'm kind of missing him today. I mean, this white guy's kind of cool, but you know how I feel about Brandon.
I know.
He still won't touch me, though, even with my new hat. What's wrong with him? Come on, Brandon, I see you over there. Should I sing to you again? All by myself. I don't want to be all by myself.
Oh, that's true.
I do have Wyatt. Hey, Wyatt, how you doing? Hey, Mr. Unicorn.
All right, we're done. Okay, so he's obviously got that taken off.
So, clevis
hopefully
is
you
off.
guys were paying attention to that, not Brandon's shenanigans. You know how he is, so.
So now that the clevis is off, reason you have to do that is obviously to be able to slide this piece off here. So we can start doing so. Before you start to pull everything apart, though, you do want to give everything a pretty good clean. So let me grab a rag real quick.
Okay.
A couple.
Now remember, guys, I did post a link in one of our previous videos. You should go find it for shop rags on Amazon, because if you're going to be doing maintenance on your bike, you need to have shop rags.
Yeah.
So
just using a little bit of isopropyl alcohol to wipe everything down. You don't want to use anything too harsh, like a degreaser or anything.
Now they can find that Home Depot, Lowe's, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not necessarily a brand specific. You just need to make sure you get the right type of stuff. So
yeah, this is 99%, which is a little harder to find, but even like a 70% that you could find at just like a pharmacy or anything, or Walmart is just fine.
Okay.
You just don't want to use anything that's super harsh on like rubber, because
dry out the
will
seals and
seep
everything.
into other seals when you're cleaning it. Yeah,
okay. Makes sense.
Because what we're doing here is just it's the 50-hour service, the air can service. So it's not like super intense on the damper or anything. It's literally just going through the air can, cleaning that stuff out, relubricating it. It's like an oil change on your car, pretty much.
Okay.
But next step would be to throw this thing in a soft jawed vise. So we'll go back over to the vise for just a moment.
Okay. Go ahead and step out over here.
Grab some aluminum soft jaws, just so you don't go crushing the shock. But
yeah, you just need to hold this in place, guys. You don't need to, you're not pressing bearings back into it or anything. So, because if you put too much torque on that vise, you can easily crush the shock itself and warp it out. So
you want to be very careful in the vise too. Like it's a good place to hold the shock and to be able to get leverage on it. But yeah, you want to be careful where you're clamping.
Right.
And it's always good to have some aluminum jaws as well, just so you're working with a softer metal. But once
Try
you get
not
it
to
in
use
there,
vice grips, guys. That's seriously.
don't use vice grips. Yeah. But once you get it in there, you can twist it off. It's just normal thread.
Oh, and that actually comes out pretty darn easy.
Yeah, and they're only hand tight. Being it's such a high pressure when you're riding the thing, it's not going to come unthreading on you.
Okay.
But once you get it unthreaded, you can kind of pull it down like that.
Okay.
At that point,
let's bring that over
pretty
here
much done with the vise.
That is.
At this point, I'm going to put my gloves on. Just
the jaws.
But you want to wear gloves, obviously, just because you're working with gross oils and greases.
Right.
And you're trying to prevent getting, obviously, those things in the shock as well.
So a little side note on that, guys. So some of you know, I did industrial and commercial plumbing for like 16 years. Dirty, changing out valves, reclamation centers, just all kinds of stuff. I'm a plumber, for Christ's sakes, and I couldn't stand it if I got flux on my hands, just the consistency. But I never wore gloves, so go figure. So, anyways.
Right.
So yeah, so use gloves, protect your hands. You don't want it all over the place.
Definitely. So at this point, I kind of forgot, but you're obviously going to want a 50-hour seal kit from Fox for a Fox float. This video would be going over for the Fox float. This procedure is nice for the Fox stuff because it's pretty much the same for all this stuff, even pretty much as far back to like the early 2000s.
Oh, okay, nice.
The service all the same, the seal kit's the same. Rock Shocks, Monarchs, and Deluxes, things like that are very similar. They use a different seal kit, obviously. You would want to reference the service procedures tab on the website or something like that to find that information. But it's all really similar. And once you get everything kind of pulled apart like this, you're going to start removing the seals, obviously. So you have your main wiper seal right here, which obviously you can visibly see when your shock's on your bike. And to remove these things, it's pretty easy. I have like a 45-degree pick here. And the thing you're being cautious about is not to scratch anything, because that further down the line is going to cause you to leak air or something like that. So be very cautious not to scratch anything, but you can kind of just push the seals out of their pocket down into the shock, and they'll pop out down here, kind of separate the old ones. And
Right, you don't want to take the time to do this and put an old seal back in here.
So these ones come out pretty easy. There's going to be that main wiper seal and then one wiper seal right underneath that. And then if you can kind of see, it's hard to see, but there are two little Delrin washers in there pretty much. These ones are kind of the hard ones to get out, and you've kind of reach back there behind them. Okay. And those are the ones where you got to be cautious about scratching, because those ones kind of do take a little bit of leverage to get out. Okay. Just takes practice, though. Once you do it a couple times, you'll be whipping them out. Yeah. You know.
Now, for some people watching this, they might be like, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting," and you know, maybe Wyatt should replace Brandon as far as the talent goes. No, I'm joking, Brandon. I'm joking, Brandon. But this, even as simple as it looks and straightforward, someone might say, "Yep, that's not for me." Typically, how much does this service cost here at the shop?
So at the shop, yeah, you're looking $60 of labor, and then you're looking about $21.99 for the seal kit.
Okay, so about $100 out the door and everything.
Yeah. Okay, and that's cheaper than what Fox would do it for, most likely. So it's nice that you can get it done. You know, here we do it same day. Right. But yeah, most shops will do these basic air can services, and it really doesn't run a whole lot. But it'll prolong the life of your suspension for a long time. So it's very worthwhile to do. And like I said, it's like an oil change in your car. If you never do it, you're going to run into issues down the line, and your suspension is going to feel like crap. Right. You're not even going to realize it.
And at that point, well, why do you even have suspension on your bike?
Exactly. So, yeah, but at this point, other seals, after we get everything out of here, there's only those 5 in there. We have another big rubber seal right here.
Big rubber.
You know what I'm talking about.
We call that the Magnum in these parts.
Yeah, we got a Magnum seal right here. Alrighty, and then again, these ones are slotted Delrin washer, whatever you want to call them. So these ones are really easy to get off.
So those look like they're made out of a nylon material?
It's Delrin, that's what they are. So it's probably super similar to nylon. I don't know exactly what it is.
Nylon or Teflon or something. More than likely, it's got a carcinogen in it. And
most likely.
It'll give you cancer. So.
Yeah, but it's just designed not to scratch the metal. So.
Right.
So this last seal is sometimes a little bit harder to get than other ones. Mostly just because you can see here there's a volume spacer in here. Okay. Sometimes you have to remove that. I'm going to try it and not remove it. But that other seal, that last main air can seal, is kind of hiding in a ridge line underneath there. Yeah. And you can pull that out.
It's like the man in the boat. It's hidden until you hit it in the right spot. And it just pops out and says, "Hey, how's it going?"
But at this point, you have all the seals out of there. So you can see how kind of quick and easy this procedure can be. Yeah. But at this point, since you have all the old seals out of here, you want to, again, get a very clean rag, brand new shop towel with some ISO on it, and just wipe everything down. Okay. This one's really clean, actually. You can kind of see the flow fluid, though, on the paper is a little green, so it's definitely good that I'm doing this service on this.
You said approximately every 50 hours you should be doing this
50 ride hours, yeah, they recommend. Or at least once a year, even if you don't ride a lot, and especially out here in Arizona, if your shit's sitting in the garage, service it, because your seals are going to dry out.
Yeah, and we've talked about this on previous episodes, guys, where these are recommended hourly services, and for people who don't get a chance to ride as much, say like me or Wyatt or Brandon or something like that, that's not going to come up all that often. But 9 months goes by, a year goes by, sometimes half a year. It's something you definitely want to take care of. Arizona is a harsh environment, the Southwest in general, a lot of grit, dust, stuff like that, and it only takes a few rides to possibly get contaminants up in there and everything. So, I mean, if you're like me, a riding full, between the two bikes, I get 50 hours a goddamn month as far as that goes.
Yeah, so I should be doing this all the time. I should be doing it more often than I am, for sure.
But hey, the best mechanics have the worst running cars because they're busy doing everybody else's stuff.
Everyone else's, yeah. So at that point, though, you're halfway done with the job. Nice. We're going to get our new seals. And this is where it gets kind of fun.
So now, as Wyatt does this, you know, this is obviously, if you've made it this far, I want to thank you, definitely. If you're finding this video entertaining, you should be, God damn it, unless you're you know, watching ABC or WB or some Lifetime 90-Day Fiance Australia or some bullshit, crap like that. Yeah. Give us the old thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Now, this is, you know, going to be a longer episode for sure. You know, hopefully through my magic editing process to cut out a little bit of the extraneous fluff and everything. But this is something we definitely don't want to skimp as far as the different steps. Definitely. There's definitely a procedure in doing this. And if you were to do it incorrectly, or if we were to leave something out, you know, in the essence of conserving time, or for the sake of conserving time, we're doing you guys a disservice. So that's why we're being, you know, very specific and thorough on this. So, but we do appreciate you sticking with us. Definitely.
And yeah, I guess we're kind of deep into it already, but yeah, don't even try and pull this stuff apart if you're, you know, kind of second guessing yourself. Yeah. Because then you'll either have to pay us to do it or send it to Fox so they can fix your problem, you know. Yeah. But it is pretty easy if you can just follow the steps, you know. So if you're confident, go for it. Awesome. So we got everything laid out on the table. So now, is this lubricant that they've included in the kit? Yeah, yeah. So you will use this no matter what at some point in the process, the float fluid that they give you. I also have some slick honey here for assembly. So this is just a suspension grease. Okay. That I'll have an ad for that down below, guys, in case you're interested. That stuff's awesome. I actually pretty much like replace what they recommend the float fluid for with the slick honey sometimes. I still end up using the float fluid in the end, but that stuff is really nice and lasts a long time. But when you and that's for shock rebuilding, guys. Don't get any called slick honey. Yeah, it looks kind of, you know, you like, perverts. Yeah. So this isn't freaking Kill Bill Volume 1. But once you pull your float seal kit open, there's a lot of these main seals that you see right here for the air can, and some of them are even the same size. They just hook you up with a bunch in case you lose a couple. Okay. But the only thing you need to do is grab your old one and find the one that's the same diameter and the same thickness. And then there you go. Some older shocks will need a supplemental kit for a different kind of this main seal, and you might have to find a tech doc to reference that. Okay. But pretty much everything, you know, 2010 to present is going to be all included. Awesome. But once you have all your new seals laid out, the process for installing the new seals is pretty much coat every single seal in a little bit of your suspension grease. So just get a little dab on the finger here and just run it through the seal. I do this, you know, I do it a little bit different every time depending on how I'm feeling, but for now, I'll just go ahead and coat them all. Sometimes he uses the left hand. Sometimes, man. Call that the stranger. Depends on the morning. But it's pretty. It's a kid show, basic. Guys. I keep telling you, it's a kid show. Pay no mind. But this part's pretty relaxing. Yeah. You know, kind of meditative. Cool. So now, how often, you know, do you see this type of maintenance come through the shop? Say on a monthly basis, how many people actually take the time to come down and have you guys do this? It's really random, and it almost seems like for some reason everyone comes at once. Like we'll have like no shock rebuilds for like 2 weeks, and then everybody like shows up. A week, you know, it's like 6, 7 the same day. That's because everybody all of a sudden found like a mountain biking global network on YouTube. Yeah, oh my God, I gotta get it serviced. Let's listen to those English tarts. Yeah, you fucking drink tea instead of coffee and wear their POC helmets. I'm such a hater. I'm sorry. Yeah, Earl Grey. Right. But yeah, so once you get to this point, you can kind of start assembling things. I always start with these guys right here. These are going to be those ones that sit beneath your wiper seal. Okay. So you can kind of like taco these ones in there. First one is pretty easy. You can kind of just put it in that second little shelf in there, and I missed, but slide it in. And then that one's going to sit on the bottom, and then this one's going to sit in the middle, and that last one's going to sit on top. And these little Delrin pieces are just meant to like make that seal sit in place. So that one's pretty easy too. The one that gives you trouble on this one is always the last one because it's real tight in there, if you know what I mean. So we will kind of wiggle that one in its way in. Sometimes you feel like you're going to break the thing, but you're not. Just keep working keep jamming it in there, you know, and you'll hear most likely click. Sometimes you gotta like press the use your little pick to press the back edge down, and then you can get that one seated in there. And then last you have your wiper seal. That one just pops in pretty easy and doesn't need a whole lot of grease on it. You'll grease that in a second here. But there you go, your air can's done there.
Okay.
Now we've got a couple more seals, obviously. This one will be our next one to go on. These are those slotted Delrin ones. You want to make sure when you place these on that they're not sitting on the wrong overlap like that.
Okay.
They are slotted at an angle, so you want to make sure they're sitting flush. That one's going to go in first. Make sure it's sitting flush. Then next is going to be our rubber seal. This one sometimes can roll. So you want to make sure when you're putting it on there that it doesn't roll onto its side, because that's going to cause issues later for you.
Right.
So this
and that one actually looks like it's grooved a little bit.
Yep. So you can see the side has a different texture than the top, and that's why you don't want it to roll, because you want the top of the seal interface obviously being where it's supposed to be. Like you can see like that, it's rolling.
Yeah,
and
it's
you don't
starting to
want
roll a
that.
bit.
Yeah. So that one's a little tricky, but if you can hold it down on one good spot and then roll it around, you're in good luck.
Not that you guys would, but don't be using a flathead screwdriver or
Yeah.
a razor knife or something to try to jimmy that thing along. That would be bad.
Exactly. Every seal install, you just need your fingers. So if you're using something else, you're doing it wrong, and you're probably going to damage something. Last one's going to be that main seal that kind of sits in a small groove. It's hard to see on camera, but just use your eyes. You'll see it in there. But it's a little groove underneath there.
Yeah, it's the one that one of the last ones you pulled out.
Yep, and that one can be a little bit tricky to get in as well. Like I said, with the volume spacer there. But just work your way around. You can kind of use your finger to keep it in one spot.
Now, as Wyatt's getting those last couple seals in, now Brandon and I have done episodes and we talk about different tools to have in your garage or shop if you're going to do this maintenance for yourselves, and that's the point of these videos. It's certainly not to try to take business away from Trek Bicycle Store or anything like that, but we like to see customers be able to work on some of their stuff. So if they can't get into the shop or something happens on a ride and the shop happens to be closed, you're not in a bad way. But you can see, you know, even like the pick tools, some of these tools you may not use all that often, but it's nice to have. So at some point, you know, put a little money aside, you know, maybe once a month or something like that, you invest in some bike-specific tools to have in your garage. You obviously don't need a full complement. Know what you're going to work on and have the right tools to do it, because it makes the job exponentially easier.
Oh yeah, this is all about having the knowledge and the tools. That's all that makes it. You know, that's the only challenge to it for sure.
Yeah.
But at this point, you're pretty much, you can see that's very easy. You're almost done at this point. The last kind of stage is to get a little bit more of your seal grease. Not a lot, you don't want to overdo this.
Right.
But just a little bit on that main wiper seal right there. And I'm not even going to get any more. I'll just take the remainder of that kind of wiped off, put that there. And at this point is where you open your float fluid. And I'm going to take a little bit of this and line the inside of the air can. And then spin that around. That's going to be nice and lubricated and feel real nice once you get that aired up. And one thing I kind of forgot to mention earlier, but when you're cleaning this air can, sometimes you'll do this air can service because you have a lot of trapped negative air. And if you're trying to fix that issue, there's a little air divot right on the side of the air can. Make sure that's clean, because that's what causes that negative air to get trapped in that chamber, is grease blocking that port. So that's another reason you want to service that, is because eventually that grease is going to dry up in there and it's going to block that port, and your shock's not going to equalize. And then you have something that feels like a pogo stick on the back of your bike.
Gotcha.
So that's not good. But
kind of like my Axis Reverb.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ram, right? But at that point, you can slide everything back on.
So now, what was this seal?
That one's going to be your sag ring,
That's the one of the
actually.
thing, okay. And
Yeah. So that one you're not going to need to do much to yet until you're pretty much done.
Okay.
But last step before you get everything on is you're going to put half of this pillow packet of float fluid in the shock, actually.
Yeah, don't go batshit crazy and celebrate it, guys. You know, it's not foam at a rave party.
Exactly. But just half. You don't have to be super accurate. Toss your remainder in the trash if you don't want it. At that point, thread everything back together. And you want to be cautious when you're threading stuff. Don't put a lot of pressure on the valve. You can break some seals in there. You can actually crack the valve, which is gonna, then you're sending it back to Fox, because most little local shops can't do damper services.
Can you guys do damper services?
We don't.
We don't? Okay.
It's just such a time-consuming thing. You'd have to charge a lot of money for it, unless you're doing it all day long.
Right.
And you're doing them all the time, where you can just knock them out one after the other.
Gotcha.
But Fox, you can get a full factory service if you send your stuff into Fox for $160. It's not a bad deal.
No, it's not.
You know, because that's them going through doing the full damper assembly as well, in addition to all what we just did.
Okay.
But at that point, that's where this Yoxel's asked about this last one. That's your sag ring, just so you can measure your sag. That one goes on. And then I'm going to put this in the vise real quick.
All right, we're going to switch places here.
And that's when I'm just going to get this thing hand tight. And it's already there. I don't need it any tighter than that.
Okay.
And now you're done. You just want to clean everything up. You want to wipe all the excess grease off. That's going to all attract dirt down the line, you know. So you want to make sure your shock's very clean after this. So wipe off all that slick honey that I just got all over it. But at this point, you can air it up a little bit. You don't need to air it up fully yet because you're going to want to cycle this thing on the bike. As you air it up, you're pumping all of your pressure into your positive chamber here, and then as you cycle the shock, it's going to transfer to your neg chamber as well.
Okay.
So you're going to lose some of that pressure. That's sometimes why you'll see you pump it up after a service, and then you go ride it for a second. It was at 160, and now it's at 120. It's totally normal. You're filling another chamber with air once you cycle the shock. So I typically just throw mine at 100 psi or so, maybe even 50, and then you can put it on the bike, cycle it a couple times. And then just put it to your desired pressure and you're done. Okay. And then you've done your service. You should feel, it feels a lot better on like small bump compliance and stuff like that. It should feel more sensitive after doing the 50-hour service. Okay. And that's why I like doing it so much, because you can truly feel difference, after you do it. Nice. Especially if you're kind of like me, like I haven't done this in probably a little overdue, so I'll go for a ride and
should rock and roll.
Be quite stoked on it probably.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. I'm going to finish wiping that off and take off his gloves real quick as we start the closing and everything. So you guys see, I wouldn't necessarily say it's hard, but it's not something that you're just going to want to jump into unless you know what you're doing and everything. And, hopefully this tutorial video has showed you that with the proper tools, the proper kit and everything like that. I mean, this took us, 20 minutes? 20 minutes, and then, throw another 20 minutes or so, getting the shock off the bike a half an hour. You can get this service done, we'll say an hour to an hour and a half's time in your garage. It does help to have a stand, obviously, to get the rear shock off and the tire off and everything. But, some of the stuff really isn't that difficult or anything. And, of course, the first time you do it, i.e. like changing your brakes on a car and thing, that voodoo magic, I've never done it. Yeah. I know I was 16 and the first time I did an oil change on my car, I was like, what am I going to do? Yeah, But once you do it, and you get used to doing it, it gets easier every time. Definitely. So like Wyatt said. So, all right, guys, that's it. Told you. Shocking. It's easy. Yeah, I know. that was bad. Hopefully I'll have something next week better. So it was good. Wyatt, thanks, man. Yeah, of course. I really appreciate it. So now, guys, once again, if you found the video entertaining, which you should have, if you found educational value in it today, definitely. I know sometimes when Brandon and I do these, it's like, educational. Are you kidding me? Comedy. We ask that you hit the like and the subscribe button, as well as the bell notification icon, the ding-a-ling-a-ling icon, so that way whenever we post a new video, whether it be a toolbox topic, a trail video, coming soon, the studio's almost done, so we'll have the Let's Talk About It coming up here pretty soon, you'll get a notification so you'll be able to stay current on all that stuff. Now, down below, we have a link to Trek Bicycle Store West Phoenix. Click the link if you have any additional questions about this or anything that you've seen in one of our videos, or any questions in general, about bikes. Don't call and, ask what the current fluctuation rate on the yen is in Japan, because you might not get an accurate answer. Next thing you know, you're buying stock in GameStop, and we already know how that turned out. Diamond hands. Right. But seriously, so the link's down below, so you can do that. I'm going to have links for the rebuild kits for FOC and RockShox. I'll have a link for the Slick Honey, and I'll go ahead and throw the link down there again for the shop rags, so that way if you guys don't have any or you're running low, it'll be a good opportunity for you to stock up. Now, I'll remind you, those links are not affiliate links, and we don't receive any type of monetary compensation. What does help us, though, is you guys hitting the like and subscribe button. So, Wyatt, is there anything else you want to add about this procedure before we go? Do it as much as you can. Like I said, it's awesome every time you do it because you can notice that difference. It's going to keep your stuff working if you do this service, you'll be running for a long time for sure. Awesome. There you go. All right, guys, what do we tell you? Be kind to yourself and others. Be amazing stewards out on that trail. And we got to ask, what are you waiting for? Get out, Arizona. We'll see you on the next adventure. Wyatt, thanks again, my friend. Man. I really appreciate it. Now, hey, guys, in a couple weeks, Wyatt's going to be back with us, and we're going to have a bike packing episode. That's right, and I can't wait. So he's going to bring your personal bike in. We're going to talk about a bike packing rig, the differences between a bike packing bike and a regular standard bike and everything. And that's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you look for that in the next couple weeks. So that's it, guys. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Cool. That was good.
All right, man. That was good.
That was nice.